الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So Brother Mutahhir, he asked me to come and speak about the importance and the virtue of seeking knowledge. And there were a few words or a few things that came to my mind. There are a few things that are typically said. I wanted to kind of deviate from tradition a little bit. Let me first begin by saying that whenever knowledge is mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, whenever knowledge is mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, what is referred to is the knowledge of Allah. The knowledge of Allah and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from His servants. This is the knowledge that is being referenced tonight. So what is the importance and the virtue of knowledge? The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Uthman, collected by Muslim, "Man mata wa huwa ya'lam annahu la ilaha illallah, dakhala al-jannah." So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said what means whoever dies knowing that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah will enter paradise. And so the Prophet ﷺ is indicating to us here that one of the virtues, one of the merits, one of the excellent qualities of of knowledge in Islam is that it is a cause for a person to enter paradise. The Prophet is telling us that if we know, if we have knowledge, not we're guessing, not if it's something that we believe because we inherit Islam or Islam is part of our bloodline, but we know it. We've attained it through studying and learning. If we know it, if we have the knowledge, it can cause us to enter into paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, talking about knowledge, He says, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. He says, are they equal, those who know and those who do not know? إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. He says, but only those endowed with intellect and perception will pay heed. So obviously this question from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are they equal, those who know and those who do not know? It's a rhetorical question. Of course, the people who know are not equal to the people who don't know. They cannot be equated. And this is something that we see in our everyday life. This is something that we can all bear witness to in our everyday lives, in our own experience, in our own perception of what's right and wrong in things. So for example, if something happened and we were not witnesses to what happened and we wanted to know what happened, none of us would accept the witness or the testimony of someone who doesn't have first-hand knowledge of what happened. We never do that. We don't want to hear it from someone who thinks what happened, is guessing about what happened. We want to know what actually happened. We want to hear it from the people who have what? First-hand knowledge. Similarly, if we have a choice in anything, and we're able to choose between the seasoned veteran who has a wealth of knowledge and experience about any particular thing, and the apprentice who is lacking in knowledge and experience, we always choose the seasoned veteran, the one who has the most knowledge. If there are two flights going to the same place, one of them being flown by a person with hundreds of thousands of flight hours and all this knowledge and experience, and one being flown by someone who just got his wings, we always choose what? If we're able to choose, we'll choose the flight with the one who has the most knowledge. Same thing if we're going to get our car repaired and we have to choose a mechanic, the most knowledgeable and skilled mechanic. Same thing if we're going to get our hair cut, go to a barber or to a hairdresser. We always choose the person with the most knowledge and experience. This is how we are in our life. We don't equate, we don't consider the one who knows equal to the one who does not know. And similarly, none of us in our own experience and how we're described and perceived, none of us wants to be described as ignorant or not knowing. And sometimes we're put in situations where we're asked about something and we'll even feign knowledge. We'll pretend to know the answer because we don't want to be associated with ignorance. We don't want to be associated with not knowing. These are a few examples from our own lives and experience that tell us that in our minds, what we all accept and acknowledge is that the people who know are not equal to the people who don't know. The people who know are superior. Also consider the last phrase of that passage from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرْ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. He says, but only those endowed with intellect and perception will pay heed. So even though we know that the people who know are superior, unfortunately, many people don't behave or act in accordance with what they know. Many people lack the awareness of the virtue of knowledge. They lack the awareness of their own ignorance. And they lack the awareness of the consequences of ignorance in their everyday lives. How they are being harmed daily, spiritually and materially, because of their ignorance. Some of us, we just don't pay attention. If we did pay attention, we'd spend more time trying to what? To learn. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. He says, know that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah, and seek forgiveness for your sin. So if you notice the wording of the verse, Allah says, no. This is an imperative. This is Allah giving us a command. He's commanding us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever He commands in the Quran, He only commands something. He only orders us to do something that He loves and is pleased with. And so basically when Allah tells us no, He's basically telling us that He loves knowledge. He loves the people who seek knowledge, and He loves those who possess it. And so what is the message? The message is that one of the virtues and one of the important qualities of knowledge, what makes knowledge important, is because it is a means to attain Allah's love. It is a means for us to qualify to be loved by Allah. Also notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَعْلَمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. He says no and seek forgiveness for your sin. Shows you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to know and then act in accordance with our knowledge. It also shows you when He says, فَعْلَمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. Know and then seek forgiveness, that He doesn't want us to act without knowing. He doesn't want us to act before we know. He wants us to act based upon knowledge, which requires us to know, to learn, which makes knowing, which makes knowledge or seeking knowledge obligatory. As the Prophet said in the Hadith, he said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. He said, seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. It doesn't mean that every Muslim has to become a scholar. But every Muslim has to learn that amount of knowledge about his religion that will make him truly a believer, truly a Muslim. We can't be Muslims by blood only. We can't consider Islam to be something we inherited from our parents. It's something that we have to know. We have to know enough about Islam to legitimize our claim to be Muslim. Another statement of the Prophet which highlights the importance of knowledge is that he said in the Hadith, he said, إِنَّ الْإِسْلَامَ بَدَأَ غَرِيبًا وَسَيَعُودُ غَرِيبًا كَمَا بَدَأَ فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاءِ. He said, Islam began as something strange, and it will return to being something strange or being an oddity in the same way that it began. So glad tidings of paradise to the strangers. So ask yourself, what made Islam strange when it first came? And what will cause Islam to become strange? It's ignorance. Islam was strange when it first came because the people were so ignorant they couldn't recognize the truth. The truth was unfamiliar to them. And people will become so ignorant that Islam will become what? The real Islam, the true Islam will become unfamiliar to them. Strange, odd, weird. And what will make us from those people that the Prophet praised and encouraged us to be from their ilk at the end of the Hadith, فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاءِ, good tidings for the strangers. What will make us be from those people who will bask in the bliss of paradise is recognizing the truth for what it is, and the only way to be able to do that is to know, to have knowledge, which shows you again the virtue importance of knowledge. Lastly, I'll mention 2 ahadith. But before mentioning, let me say that knowledge, another virtue of another matter that makes it very important for us to learn, is that knowledge is what truly separates us from animals. It's what makes us human beings truly civilized and morally upright. It's what makes us different, having knowledge. And if we don't have knowledge, we can be just like animals, or even worse than animals. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. He says, these people, they are like animals. They're like cattle. No, they're even what? Worse than cattle. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. These, they are the heedless ones. These are the people who have what? They don't have knowledge. They're oblivious. They don't even care to know what's going on around them. They don't even care to know truth. We can become worse than animals, and this shows you another virtue of knowledge, the importance of knowledge. And just to illustrate this, there are 2 statements of the Prophet I'd like to share. One of them is the statement of the Prophet when she said, لا تقوم الساعة حتى تضطرب آليات نساء دوس على ذي الخليصة. ذي الخلصة. He said, the hour will not be established until the women of Dos wag their backsides as they circle around the idol Dhil Khalasa, worshipping it. And he also said in another hadith, he said, لا تقوم الساعة حتى يرجع ناس من أمتي إلى عبادة الأوثان من دون الله تعالى. He said, the hour will not be established until some of my followers return to the worship of idols besides Allah, be exalted as they did in Jahiliyyah. I want you to think about that for a second. I want you to ask yourself, what is, if you were to say, if somebody were to ask you, what is the cornerstone of Islam? What is the heart of Islam? What is the crux of Islam? What would you say? If you had to put it in one word, what would you say? At-Tawheed. At-Tawheed. That is the loop, the essence of Islam, the crux of Islam, the cornerstone of Islam. What level of ignorance would people have to reach? An incredible amount of ignorance. They would have to have reached the lowest depths of ignorance in order for them to worship idols, to go around and circle around idols the way they did in Jahiliyyah. This teaches us how far people, if they don't learn, if they don't study, how far they can get away from what? From the true Islam, which at its essence is a tawheed and the rejection of idolatry and polytheism. So these are just some of the virtues and some of the indications of the importance of knowledge. And despite this, if we look around us, we see there's very little learning going on, and that there's a great deal of ignorance. You could argue that the Muslims are the most ignorant now than they have been in the history of Islam. And some of the things that we've talked about, the actual worshiping of idols, going to tombs and sacrificing animals and bowing down before these tombs and making prayer to the people in the tombs, they're going on right now. And some other acts of ignorance and the lack of knowledge of just basic right and wrong in Islam. These are things that are prevalent and things that people say out loud on social media. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what is the problem? Why is it like this? These are the virtues of, we could go on, and we've mentioned quite a few of them here today. Why are we so ignorant? Why are we so disinterested in learning? And so some of the problems, if you ask me, my opinion, and I think if you reflect on it, maybe you'll share my view. There are a few things that have kind of like come together and intersected and created what? This problem. One of them is that when people look at Islam, when they look at Islam, to them the teaching seems so abstract and removed from the realities of today. People just feel like when they read the Quran, when they read the Hadith, they feel like what they're reading is something which has no relevance to our time. It seems like that. It's not like that, but it seems like that. The second thing is that the teachers themselves, the people who are teaching Islam, they seem, underscore the word seem, they seem incapable of relating the teachings of the religion to the complexities of everyday life in this modern world in which we live. That people feel like what they're saying and what's going on right now, they don't what? They don't align. That they're living through their speech in an alternate reality to what we're actually living. And then last but not least, the students, because of all this, the people who are listening, coming for the khutbah and falling asleep, coming late, just in time for the iqamah, or coming early, but tuning out, and just waiting for what? Allahu Akbar, to know that they should what? They should stand up. The students themselves have become disenchanted and disinterested. And they've concluded that the religion doesn't speak to them, nor is it able to speak to them. That they speak a language, and the religion and the teachers who are teaching religion are speaking a different language, and those languages cannot what? They cannot be translated such that what? This side can understand that side. So if you look at this, a lot of the onus, it sounds like it's on what? The teachings and the teachers. But what we have to understand as people who need to learn Islam and need to appreciate the importance of knowledge is that there's a shared onus. There's a shared onus. Teachers and institutions of learning, they have to do a better job of teaching and adapting to the times. But Muslims also have to learn, and they have to actively seek knowledge, and they can't use what they see as the shortcomings in the teachers and the institutions as an excuse to remain ignorant. Think of it this way. Think of it this way. Let's say that somebody was going to give you a gift. And the messenger who brought the gift, who delivered it, didn't have the best clothing, didn't come in the best vehicle, and the packaging of the gift was poor. It was awful. But inside of it is this beautiful gift, this precious gift. Would you still accept the gift? The person who delivered it was undesirable. The packaging is not pleasing to the eye. But inside all of that is a precious gift. Would you accept it? We would accept it. We would take the gift despite the one who delivered it, and despite what? The packaging in which it came. What we've learned today, just in a few words, is that knowledge is precious. It's a precious gift to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to every human being. A gift that offers us an opportunity to enter paradise, to earn Allah's love, to be from the people who Allah views as what? As special, superior. This is the gift of knowledge. And you and I are rejecting it. Some of us are rejecting it. Why? Because we don't like who brought it. We're rejecting it because what? We don't like the appearance of it. And so what we need to do is rise above all of that and realize that this is the trick of the shaitan. That the shaitan wants to give us excuses not to what? Not to seek knowledge, not to learn knowledge, not to love knowledge. And then earn, as a consequence, all of these blessings and virtues that we mentioned as being part and parcel and coming hand in hand with seeking knowledge. And with that, we bring these words to a close. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام. جزاكم الله خيرا. الحمد لله.